Superman and Lois season three's review. It's spoiler free. Of course, we're not going to spoil you before the episode drops, but the wait, I believe, was worth it.
You guys, I've been waiting out here for what, 6 months for new episodes, longer than that actually, of Superman and Lois. And before we get into it, I just want to say Superman and Lois is the best superhero show on TV, and my opinion has not changed after watching the season three premiere. We were sent both the first two episodes, but our kind of way of doing things is that we always review the series premiere since it'll be the first episode that everyone sees. And what a start to the season it is.
I agree because it's really hard to launch a season. Everyone has expectations when you're in the hiatus. They have thoughts on how the season is going to open. And what I really liked was how settled season three starts. We're back in the thick of things. The Kents are Kenting in a way that they have great family dynamic, and Clark and Lois are happy. They're extremely happy, and it's nice to see them in a good place, and that for them to recognize they're in a good place and be excited about it.
That's what I really loved about this episode because it was very family focused. We got a lot of the practical side of their lives, which Michael's always said this is like a family show with superheroes, right? That's what you said.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what we got. And it was a nice like ease into a third season, I would say. I really appreciated spending more time with these characters apart from like the larger than life aspects, which I love too. And they were present, no spoilers. But yeah, I loved like, easing. It was like, you're just hanging out with some friends. And then stuff really starts to hit the fan.
No, I totally agree with you. I think the thing that makes Superman and Lois work so well is that it's kind of like Parenthood or Friday Night Lights meets a super typical superhero show. So like say like Parenthood meets The Flash or something like that. But this episode in particular leans more on the Parenthood side of things. It's definitely a more family focused episode. You get to learn more about the characters. It's very much the calm before the storm. And I really appreciate those kinds of episodes because we have 13 episodes of a who knows what kind of season to expect here. And they decided to take a beat and let us just see the characters. One of my biggest issues is when they take hiatuses between seasons or whatever. It's just from one storyline straight through the next. We got a moment to pause and play with the characters here and see who they are. Let's see how they're dealing with both the aftermath of the previous events and the start of these new ones. And just you learn so much just about Clark and Lois, about Lana, just about all of the characters in Smallville. And I love that little community, and this episode is full of that.
And we open with a celebration too, at least for the beginning of season three, with it being the boy's birthday. Like, I think it's a really good time to be reflecting on paths forward because 16 is such a milestone for teenagers, and both Jordan and Jonathan are trying to figure themselves out. They do that every season, but I feel like the more they've been brought into their father's world, the more they've had to figure out who they are, not just like with him being Superman, but who they are outside of him and what they want to be. And I think that's an interesting thing that we'll probably be discovering more as we go through the season, especially as it's clear that Jordan and Jonathan have separate paths to go on.
Yeah, definitely. No, you'll see if you've seen the trailer, you'll know that Jordan and Clark are probably destined to have another storyline together because that's definitely the way the season has been building, or the show has been building throughout the seasons. Because Jordan is very much the superpowered element of the show. If we break Superman and Lois down into family drama meets superhero series, Jordan is the superhero part of it as far as the kids go. He's definitely looks like he's going down the Superman in training route. And Jonathan's story, the reason we fell in love with Jonathan's story is because him and Lois are the ordinary people in an extraordinary family. And no spoilers, but I feel like we will continue to see that arc throughout this season. And I feel like now is a good time to mention that I think Michael Bishop is doing a great job as the new Jonathan. It is very hard to slot into a well-oiled machine such as this, especially a show with the kind of like visibility that Superman at Lois has. And it takes no time whatsoever before you're like, oh, look, we're catching up with Jonathan again. He's done such a great job of channeling Jordan Elsas's performance, but also adding his own unique vibe to the character. It feels like catching up with an old friend very quickly. We move away from the transition. There's not like, oh, it's a new Jonathan. It feels like the same character, but with something different. And that's what you want at the start of any season. So I just wanted to take a moment and say, excellent job on the recasting because he's doing a great performance.
I really like him too. And I like the way that they there's some visual cues I won't give away, but there's some like visuals of when he's first seen that are like, it's kind of like if you didn't watch this show and you didn't know they were recasting, you would be like, oh, it's a scene. But like as a fan, you're like, oh, they referenced it visually without like beating us over the head about introducing this new actor. But like you said, he brings something completely different to the character. He's a little bit, I don't want to say more fun, but like there's a little bit more of like a lightness to Jonathan, I felt in this season so far, which I enjoyed seeing. It's a different take on the character, which I think is important when you recast. Like you can't just pretend to be the person that played the part before you. You have to give it your own spin, and I think it's gonna add something great to the season.
Yeah, I think Michael Bishop plays Jonathan as being more settled. Like, not to say that Jordan and Jonathan were always combative, even though they had their moments, but I just feel like there was a more frantic energy to Jonathan in season 2 that seems to be gone now, at least in the premiere. And that might just have to do with the fact that everyone's kind of out of school, I think, for the most part, and he's had time to settle with all the decisions that he made in season 2, which were not great, and yet has found his footing again. So it's interesting to see how Michael Bishop takes that further into the season. For me, I wanted to know what the scenes were going to be like between the twins and whether I would feel like there was something missing. And they have this great moment together that speaks to the different things that are happening in their lives, but also they're allowed to bond and joke with one another. That made me feel like, okay, this dynamic is going to work. Because to me, that's the most important relationship between these two characters is the brotherhood. And I wanted that to stay intact. And it's going to take time to grow, but it's definitely there. And I was excited to see that.
It really does, because they have such a unique dynamic, and I feel like both characters are so important to the show. Not to say that the twins have the subplot of the series, but obviously we have the Superman story, and then we have the twin storyline. So it's equally as important to the success of the show. And based off the premiere, I think it's going to continue being successful because Michael Bishop and Alex Garfin have great chemistry off the bat, and I hope we get to continue to see it grow as the episodes go on.
For sure. And it's going to be interesting too, as since this is a show that balances family and the action rather well, and they did that terrifically in the season 3 opener, how we do the family dynamic things with what's gone on over with Bruno Manheim, which we can't really say anything about him other than like he's going to be a fantastic villain. Felt very delicious in his scenes. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Oh, without a doubt. I was a big fan of Chad L. Coleman on The Walking Dead. I was a big fan of his performance as Tobias Church on Arrow. He has such a larger than life screen presence, and in a very short amount of time that's instantly coming across in Superman and Lois. I feel like Bruno Mannheim's definitely going to be a different kind of villain than the show was used to doing, because I know the concern here was that we were going to start in a similar route in previous seasons, and that we have this businessman villain who then turns into an alien character halfway through. We saw that with Ali Austin in season 2, but I think we're going in a different route here, and the presence of Bruno Mannheim is instantly different than what we've seen before. Superman and Lois is shaping up to be a bit darker than it used to be. Every show goes on a dark turn in season 3, but I feel like Superman and Lois will handle it excellently, because I've come away from the season premiere very excited for where we're going.
Yeah, I feel like the premiere is going to end and everyone's going to immediately want episode 2.
Oh yeah,
Like a
I
wish
did.
for a 2-hour premiere.
Yeah.
I did, and I had both episodes.